This is what's left after a long, hot summer of gardening. That right there is it's my newest garden bed. I always refer to it as the corn plot, even though y'all can plainly see we've harvested most of the corn. There's a little Danny corn in there, but it's pretty much done. Now it's become the Seminole pumpkin plot. I built this plot 4 years ago. It was immediately a great success. Now it's a great success plus 4 years. What I want to do is I want to talk to you about why it was a great success. And I want to show you some other plots that weren't. This plot right here is older. Several years older, matter of fact. And you can see some nightshades here. Tomatoes trying to escape the garden. Lots of, stuff. What we call all this stuff. Strawberries are rebounding from the heat. Over there you can see purple potatoes, white potatoes, and red tomatoes. Behind the red tomatoes are blueberries. This plot right here had a lot of disease that I had to mitigate. In the distance back there, that's my main garden. Everything grows there. It's 15 years old. That in the middle, pepper plants. If I got your attention with this little visual, let's go over here. Let's talk about what it takes for you to either have an immediately successful experience with the Back to Eden method, like this, or for you to have one where you're chasing some disease like that. Let's get to the root of this. I'd like to start out by sharing with you what the ground looks like here. Does that look healthy? We're standing on my old farm. I worked so hard only to fail here. Its primary occupant is Bermuda grass and weeds. This is the image of a bacterial dominant dirt set. It is hard. It is very, very well packed. If I was to use a device to determine what the compaction rate was, it would be in excess of 500 pounds per square inch. Okay? This doesn't grow stuff. Not well. It grows weeds. Bacteria is small. All it needs is water and a food source. And it has it. But you come on over here and you look at this. I mean, there's plenty of life. Look at all the sweet potatoes. There's a grapevine. There's more tomatoes. You can see the Seminole pumpkin seed that I planted is, well, doing just fine. When I built this bed, I put down 8 to 10 inches of compost that I made here. And then I covered that 8 to 10 inches of compost with another layer of wood chips. All right? The wood chips were raw. They'd been aging for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. It's hard to remember. It doesn't matter. The point is, we're going to put some aged wood chips over the top of the compost. We're going to meet carbon with carbon. We're going to meet life with life. We're going to separate ourselves from that which I showed you over here. You can see it all over the place. The stuff is nasty. I wouldn't want to grow in it if I was a plant. I wouldn't. But this has a better mixture of fungi and bacteria. How did we get it that way? The first thing I did was basically I cut this grass down till it was as low as it could go. This could be any type of grass. It could be fescue, it could be Bermuda grass, it could be, you name it, any type of perennial grass. It makes no difference. You've got to get back down to the dirt. And when you get down to the dirt, you can build upwards. Why is that? In the case of Bermuda grass, if you don't get rid of the Bermuda grass, well, and then you lay compost on top of it, it's just going to keep growing. In the case of fescue and some other grasses, they might not keep growing, but all of the grasses have deep enough roots to ultimately fight for their survival. So if we can get the grasses stressed or removed, then we stand a better chance of this happening. Really, you've got to put a sufficient amount of compost on top of the red clay or the sand or the caliche so that the plants that you put in there automatically have enough soil depth to grow. All right? We're going to talk about these two parts in a second. So what I did here was I did that. I installed the compost, and that's where the roots of the plants would grow. And then I put wood chips over the top. And that protects it all, and it keeps the moisture in place and allows for habitat creation, so all of the soil microbial colonists can enter the system and begin to thrive. We want that. We want them to thrive. We want to see lots of lush growth, as much as we can. We want to see it as soon as possible. There's a lot of reasons why this process won't work immediately. In particular, one of them is if you break off the gas and air exchange to the plant roots. I mentioned cutting this grass down so it's really, really low, so it gives us the least amount of trouble. But if you were to go ahead and put cardboard, especially if that cardboard contains chemicals, right on top of it, you're basically suffocating the earth. You're also suffocating the plants above it because they cannot breathe well when you block off the earth. Why is that? The reason for this is because more moisture will bank above the top, kind of like filling a bowl with water. And plants don't generally want to do that. I mean, aquatic plants and anything that's in a riparian, and anything that happens to be in a wetter area like down by a creek or a river, they do fine. But we're not eating those plants. We're not. We're eating the plants that are for making vegetables, for making root crops, and for making fruits and nuts. So let me show you something here. This right here, I should call part A. This is my compost. And I pulled some cover off of it before so y'all could see that it's actually compost. Over here you can see there's some grasses that are growing in it. They're native grasses that are here. They're not harming anything. The wood chips I've used to cover them to protect it. This pile is large enough. It's probably about 7 or 8 yards. It's large enough for me to build a whole entire garden. There's lots of stuff that has seeds on it here. It's a pine cone. It's basically all seeds. They won't grow. Not many of them. Let me go ahead and I'm going to dig into here so y'all can see that this is really compost. See? It's really compost. Once I get underneath the wood chips, you can barely recognize the parent media. Plants grow in this. If I need seeds to grow, I can sift this through a 1/4-inch hardware cloth, and the resultant sifted medias will be super fine. I can use that to grow seeds. I can use that especially to grow delicate root crops like carrots. If you try to grow carrots inside this stuff, they end up forked. So that right there is part A, compost. Let's go see what part B looks like. This over here, this is part B. It's not compost, it's basically just raw wood chips. We can't even really call it carbon yet, but it's a carbon source. All right? I mean, it's pretty nappy looking. Ultimately, if you put this on top of your garden, you'd want to remove it. But within all of that, there's all of this. This lacks disease, this lacks weed seeds, it lacks grass seeds. This actually will hold moisture locked into your compost. It will also prevent splash pathogens from getting on your nightshades. And we can get it for not a lot of money. Or free, especially if you develop a relationship with some arborists. In my case, I am paying for it now. This much wood chips right here started out as 40 yards. I give $20 for 20 yards. So it cost me 40 bucks. It's enough to cover my main garden and then some. My main garden's fairly large. But more importantly, when I add this part B on top of the part A, I've created a habitat for the soil to develop on its own, unabated, for it to develop while avoiding things like solarization, for it to develop and begin to hold the colonizing species of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and microarthropods, worms, and all these beneficial species out there that are synonymous with healthy ecologies. If I create this, I can have fertility immediately. I don't have to wait 3 years. Y'all see this? That's a weed growing in a bacteria-dominant area. Has no problem growing in this hard pan. All right, that's a weed too. I don't hate on weeds. Never did, never will. More of the same. These things grow in a bacteria-dominant area. When I put part A and B together, I'm going to shift that balance towards fungal and bacterially balanced. I create an environment where fungi and bacteria work in a superfluous way. I did it again. Where I create an environment where fungi and bacteria work together for the same goals. They tend to take care of my annual plants better. Let's look at some proof for this, okay? Okay, here we go. We're shifting from an ecology that is laden with bacteria dominance towards an ecology that's laden with fungal dominance. In order for a Back to Eden garden to be productive in year one, it needs to have a combination of fungal species and a combination of bacterial species. Y'all don't believe this is fungal dominant? Come on. Those of you that know me know I'm telling you the truth. And those of you that do not know me yet will eventually learn that I'm telling you the truth. You'll see weeds. That's not a weed, that's a baby tree. It's a baby poplar tree. Look at, like, there's 2 blades of grass over there. Look at what's here. Y'all are afraid of these because you think they're acidic. They're not acidic. These things break down into basically pH neutral. They break down after they've been sitting on the ground like this to a pH that's neutral. One of the reasons why they break down so far is because that's what they were programmed to do. We really want to grow in a neutral pH soil. We really want our plants to grow in those soils because that affords us the ability to move up towards more alkaline or down towards more acidic, and different plants have different preferences, so we can control that. So if I know I'm going to grow something in my Back to Eden garden that prefers something that's a little bit more acidic, let's just say for instance a blueberry, I don't want to go out and pay for all kinds of acidic minerals to be dropped off. I don't want to be putting things down that are going to later go on to become a detriment to my soils of permanence. You know, we can put wood ash down in the soil and it's going to make the soil more alkaline. Yeah, wood ash tends to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not looking for anything like that. Because what happens if the next year I decide I want to grow something that really appreciates more acids? Well, guess what? Fungi makes acids. They do. Bacteria requires protons of hydrogen for locomotion. Y'all didn't know that? Y'all didn't know that bacteria use something like 10,000 protons of hydrogen just to rotate their flagella one complete time? Yeah. It's one of the reasons why when you look in these bacteria-dominant areas, more often than not, you can find that they're alkaline. They don't have the fungi making the acids. Okay? This was a meaningful walk, right, folks? Please. What Creedmoor is describing to you is that certain plants have certain preferences, and me, as a grower, I can control the environment that I produce. I can control the habitat that I create. I can put this together the same way Mother Nature did because she's teaching me to. See weeds? Come on, folks. Fungal dominant. No weeds. Trees, other hardwood species have no problem digging into the ground, even when it's hardpan. This is all hardpan. See that? They have no problem getting in there. I'm going to show you something else here. I'll show you something that's more meaningful. What you also will notice is the absence of extreme amounts of disease and insects. They're not here. This ecology is not taking fertilizers from me. I'm not putting them on it. Don't have the will to. They don't need it. They produce all of their own insecticides. I said it, they produce all of their own insecticides. Okay, so let's step away. Now let's go into an area that looks more like something we'd want to grow our plants in. Okay, I did want to stop right here because there is a strawberry coming in. That's happening because the environment is shifting. We're going from 110 degrees down to 90 and below. Okay, I put that lighter right there because I want y'all to have a perspective for what depth really means. So I think everybody understands about how tall a Bic lighter is. That's the soil depth above Earth. Yeah, that is really the soil depth. Oh, right here in this particular position, I got you zoomed in a little bit. I'll zoom out. The soil is roughly 20 inches deep. How did I get there? I started out by putting wood chips on the ground that were raw, and I kept putting them down. They broke down. I replaced them with more wood chips. I grew a bunch of funky crops that didn't always work because I didn't really understand what was going on about fungal and bacterial dominance. So I was basically just promoting fungal dominance. And fungal dominance isn't really a great way to grow, well, brassicas. So a little bit of understanding about what you're growing goes a long way towards assisting you in becoming successful. Okay? I used to let my plants die and then I would immediately rip them out, roots and all. That was a fail. The importance of adjusting your culture is as important as knowing what nutrients are in the soil. Right here you're looking at last year's brassicas. I let them grow, I let them seed, I harvest their fruit, I let the seeds drop to the ground. I don't promote fungal dominance in this area, but if you look close, there's some stressed out fungi. Why is it stressed out? Because it's old, and because Creedmoor doesn't promote fungal dominance where he grows brassicas. All right? Look at this one, somehow managed to survive 114 degrees Fahrenheit heat. I have no idea how it did it, but it did. All right, let's shift over here. That's purslane, superfood, growing right in it. Beans, yeah, I don't feed them. Mother Nature does. So how did we get here? How did we get to this place? Y'all want to quit looking at the garden and just look at Creedmoor? I can turn you around. All right, how did we get here? Well, let's just say that y'all got the preface, you get the point, you understand what I'm saying. You understand that the dirt down below, if it's hardpan or it's caliche, or even if it's sand, it might not meet the needs of your plants. Sand has an uncanny ability to lose moisture. With it, it loses also, well, nutrients. What else does it lose? Microbial support, because if there isn't enough carbon, the sand isn't going to be able to develop, well, a relationship with fungi and bacteria. Without carbon, you just got sand, and the water runs right through. It makes it very, very difficult for your plants to survive that way. So adding a source of compost to the top, a deep source of compost to the top, is going to go a really long way towards providing habitat for the microbiology that develops glues, that builds glues and actually captures nutrients and minerals and materials within the soil profile and converts them into the things that the plants like. We can do that by building the habitat above the clay. All right? We can do that by building the habitat above the sand. All right? We can do that by building the habitat above the caliche, and all we have to do is put down sufficient amount of compost and protect it with a sufficient amount of wood chips. If y'all are thinking that a ½ inch of compost is going to be enough, it's not for this system. I'm going to get to that, okay? I promise. I'm going to cover y'all who don't believe that wood chips are your answer. Why is that? Just because I put all these wood chips down doesn't mean that you have to. Just because I put all the compost down doesn't mean you have to. But you're going to have to do something else. When I put the wood chips down, it started to bank more moisture, and the soil was beginning to evolve rather quickly because it was habitat that I constructed manually above the top of the clay hardpan. After a while, the spring rains began to soak into the wood chips because the wood chips are hydrophilic. They absorb water. With that water sitting right there at the interface between the earth and the wood chip, the red clay began to soften. As it began to soften, the worms began to engage more above and more below. The worms are the soil's, not only are they moving minerals, but they're also supposed to be there sanitizing and sterilizing and consuming your seeds and depositing more soil biology that is beneficial to the germination process of seeds. I know this is crazy. So when we put down cardboard, and that cardboard has tape and microplastics on it, microplastics, even though you think it's a little piece of plastic, that little piece of plastic breaks up into a billion different pieces. Then the worms have to swim through it. When they swim through it, they consume it. When they consume it, it damages their immunity. It damages their gut biome, their microbiome that they use to digest their foods. With their gut microbiome damaged, they're not sanitizing or sterilizing anything anymore. The efficiency to which their function is reduced by is measurable. Many times it's in excess of 75%. So many worms will retreat in this case, and other worms will step in. Those other worms might not be exactly who you think they are, and they may not do things the way you think they do. Okay? They might just break down stuff faster than you can. And one thing that I've learned about braiding sweetgrass over the years is when you have a species move into your area, it becomes dominant. Eventually the man upstairs sends species to balance it. So just keep that in mind. And let me shift off that subject, because I really want to talk about y'all who don't want to put all the wood chips down, okay? If you don't want to put all the wood chips down to soften your soil and to bank moisture and bank soil life, you're going to have to somehow engage with the dirt and soften it. If you engage with the dirt and you soften it mechanically, or, dropping a pitchfork into it while it's moist, You may be able to open up some pore space, and if you open up some pore space, you can definitely drop some calcium, and you can drop some phosphorus into it a little bit at a time. You can put down some simple amends like, what do we like to use? Low sulfur blackstrap molasses. Sorry folks, we got overcast right here. There's nothing I can do about the lighting outside. But you start making these applications, and what ends up happening is like so many other soil experts have said, calcium is the deliverer of oxygen to hardpan soils. Why do you think it is that dandelion tries to bring it from the lower reserves in the native earth up towards the upper reserves where the soil is? Because doing so helps to oxygenate what's below and what's above. And everything needs calcium in their bones, so calcium carbonate is a great supplement for the plants that you eventually get to grow there. But this process also helps to raise the sugar content of the soils, which ultimately helps to support things in a more meaningful way. So just because you can't gain access to a bunch of wood chips doesn't mean that you can already start to move your ecology in the right direction towards saving your plants. All right? Yeah, 15 years of practicing the Back to Eden method, I've been rewarded hand over fist so many times. I can't count the thousands and thousands of pounds of harvest that we've had. It's a lot. You know, so if you're deciding that you want to jump out on this this journey and try to get your skills to be more in continuity with what Mother Nature's already promoting, you can definitely do it. But know this, maybe you only have enough compost to put down 1 or 2 inches. Don't go any thinner than that. Really, under no circumstance should you go any thinner than that. If you're going to put down a smattering of compost, it's going to be basically buffered and absorbed into the native earth that's beneath it so rapidly. It's going to be consumed by the starving environment that you're already existing in so rapidly that it's not going to be in a position to regenerate life. Okay? All compost isn't created equal, so I suggest if you don't know that much about making compost, by the time you get through your first year and you have grown some plants, you're going to want to shift your process towards incorporating more of the biomass that I did it again. You're going to want to include within your process the utilization of your plants to make compost and to perpetuate this sort of permaculture-like style. So we grow the plant, we take the fruit, we harvest what's above the ground as far as plant media goes as it begins to senesce and age out. We move that and shift that towards a resource pile somewhere. It's going to sit waiting in that resource pile long enough so that it can be, well, so you can have other forms of media added to it. What other forms of media can you add to it? All kinds of forms of media. You can use rice hull, you can use cracked corn, you can use grasses that aren't necessarily full of seeds. You can use, I'm not going to mention manures. Y'all are not going to draw me into talking about manure, because the simple matter is that if you invite manure into your compost system, you're also inviting E. coli. You're also inviting some other unsavory chemicals that I've talked about in the past, and I'm not going to get into this because I really want to leave y'all feeling like you're empowered. It doesn't take much to get this right. You can do it wrong. I did it wrong. Yes, truth and disclosure, I did it wrong. When Paul made the movie, he was never intending to have people put 20 inches of wood chips down. I guess the part that resonated with me was when he said he put the 24 inches of wood chips down in his nursery and he could still put his arm all the way to his elbow into the soils. So I kind of thought, okay, well, great, I can do that. You know, I was in the tree service for many years. It was part of something I did after high school, and I learned that, you know, we can get wood chips very cheaply. We can get them very quickly. So immediately I set out to develop some relationships with the wood chip people. Y'all know them. I think we call them arborists or tree guys. They could be tree gals too, by the way, because I did get some loads from tree gals that were actually working below my garden, and they were really gracious. If those tree girls happen to be paying attention to my videos and my content and following along, thanks, y'all. You rock. Developing relationships is also part of the Back to Eden method. I want y'all to understand it's not just about growing plants. It's about growing relationships. It's about sharing your harvest. It's about never having to deal with famine again. It's about never having to deal with your neighbors being hungry or lacking for something. Folks, I grow so many cucumbers, I can't even give them all away. And that's a loaded statement because I know a lot of people that can't grow cucumbers. I grow lots of peppers, another crop I can't give away. I grow lots of squash, another crop's very difficult to give away. I do tend to do better with the squash, though. If you're local to me and you're looking for some nice butternut squash, you know, hit me up. Maybe I'll send you 50 pounds. So my point is, the Back to Eden method is not just about dropping some wood chips on the ground and running. And if you watch the movie, Paul kind of gives you a great starting point. But he doesn't necessarily give you the idea of what you're going to have to do to manage and manipulate the ecology to a point where it'll become full-time productive. One of the primary differences between what I do and what Paul does and what I do and what other people do is I never rest my plots. My plots grow food all year, 365 days a year. I manage my plants very well by insulating them with the deep wood chips and compost. That helps to alter the soil temperatures. If you're down south in Puerto Rico, where the temperatures can be a little bit hotter, you're right on the equator and you're on the bulb, you know, you want deep soils. I can tell you right now, I've been to Central America, I've been to Panama, I've been to some of these nations down there with the military, and I got to see what it looks like when the soil is very, very deep. I'm not talking about like 2 inches deep, I'm talking about like several meters deep. I've seen the walking forests with my own eyes, so I know what it looks like, you know. And I'm not suggesting that I'm like world traveled or anything, no, I just went where they sent me, okay? I'm a patriot. Today I can share this information with you because I got to see it firsthand. Some of the other things that I see firsthand, I see better now with more clarity, and certainly better than you can see me on this dark and dreary day, because I use a microscope. Because everybody's always talking about disease and stuff, and say, what's killing my plant? Oh, this is blight. Every disease in a new grower's mind is blight, and that's not the truth, folks. I can examine my soils, and I can identify through census taking techniques who's present and who isn't. And just like I said to you before, most annual plants are going to want a pretty good mixture of bacteria and fungi, and the bacteria and fungi are going to set the stage for something called the rhizophagy cycle. And we want that to work because that's Mother Nature's way of feeding your plants automatically without you pounding the ground with fertilizers, without you utilizing every bit of chicken manure to throw on the garden the next season. It's not necessary. And I'm trying to keep this I'm trying to keep this less than 30 minutes. It's already been 28 minutes. So let me say this, folks. Get a good position here by my sign. If you found the information that I gave you to be of any use, or maybe you found it to be argumentative, please argue with me. I'm the one who's essentially tech support for this process. My mentor is a great man. I love him dearly. And I don't know, you know, I don't know if y'all know him, but he would be more than happy to strike these conversations with you as well. I'm certainly not going to cut him off. His tongue is as valuable as the next. It's actually more important because, well, people listen to him. So, anyway, after 30 minutes, if you made it this far, I need your help too. I do. I'm trying to get to more people so more people can benefit from what I just showed you today. And the only way I'm going to get to them is if y'all somehow see it in your heart to go ahead and click the like button to tell the algorithm it was a good video. Click the subscribe button to tell the algorithm that you want more information. And set the bell to give you notifications. Even if you just don't watch the video, or maybe if a new video comes out, you find a little bit of interest in it, you just let it play in the background. That's cool, because what ends up happening is the wider commercial ecology is going to say, hey, this guy's doing something, he's moving the needle, and we got to get him more exposure. And I'm not asking for anything else. I want to teach you to grow food. I want you to teach you to examine your soils. I want to teach you to build a back to Eden garden that's productive on day one, that you don't have to wait. Right? So I gave you the how to make it productive on day one method. We put the compost down, then we put the wood chips on top. We don't use cardboard. We cut the grasses low, and then we deal with it after that. How do we deal with it after that? You can come back and check out the other videos that I've got on how to manage your back to Eden garden, how to keep the weeds out, how to manage the weeds and grasses, how to compost invasive grasses. Check me out. I mean, really, I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there for free. I'm vying for market share. I'm struggling to get enough people to watch. And if I can't get enough people to watch, eventually YouTube is just going to kick me out. So God bless you all, especially for my friends and family in Puerto Rico, as well as my friends and family in Basque Country, and anyone else that's decided they want to follow my journey. It's an important journey, and I'd like to be in the front of it for you. So peace, God bless, and may all your fruity dreams come true.